Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. So today is November 1st, Thursday, November 1st, 2018, and we're going to go through our first November 2018 election prediction for the Senate elections and then the governor elections in a separate video. So every single day of the leading up into the election days, which is around 6 days, we are going to do a 2018 election prediction for both the Senate and the governor races. Not much is supposed to change in the last week of an election, but something can change. There's going to be a lot of data, a last-minute push for prior election polls that are definitely going to change the way that we analyze these races. A lot of races have been left in the dust, even though they may be of utmost importance for either political party. States like Nevada or Florida are not getting as many polls as they need to, whereas states like North Dakota, states like West Virginia may be getting a little bit more attention than it really deserves in terms of where they are and how contested they are. For example, another prime example is the state of Missouri, which has had very little polling. The most recent poll was taken by Fox News, I believe, with a tie, and then one before from the Missouri Scout that showed a +4 lead for the GOP candidate back on October 12th. So that was the second most recent poll. So we're not getting a lot of data from a number of these contested races, which leaves us very open-ended as to where the state is going to vote on election day. Usually opinion polls aren't the only indicator of an election, but they definitely do show where either political party is going to win. If we look back at 2016, Donald Trump won every single state that he was currently leading in, except for the states of Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania. And then, except for Nevada, he did not win the state of Nevada. But every single poll was right except for 4 states in terms of statewide election polls. So even if we're off by 1 or 2 Senate races in terms of polling data, that's still pretty accurate in terms of who it shows is going to win the midterm elections in terms of the Senate. Now, the Senate is really an uphill climb for the Democratic Party. We're looking at 35 contested races. The Republicans already have 42 in the bag because they are not up for re-election. For the Democrats, they only have 23 not up for re-election. So this 1/3 of the Senate is their entire base. Keep in mind, if we're looking at the current 115th Congress, we have 49 Democrats and 51 Republicans. If we're just looking in general why we have this close of a race, it's because every single seat will matter in terms of where we are getting the results from 2018. This is not some type of throwaway Senate election where, sure, it'll just go to the GOP or it will go to the Democratic Party. Democrats have made a number of GOP states contested, and the GOP definitely is fighting for a number of Democratic states. Again, if we're looking at the current composition, 49 to 51, every seat counts. The Republicans can afford to lose 1 seat, and that's it. The Democrats cannot afford to lose any. Going into the 2020 Senate elections, there definitely will be Senate elections where they can make gains in, but they're probably not going to want to wait until then, because if Trump gets reelected, chances are the Senate already goes to the GOP. This is their year. This is a Democratic wave year. It has been labeled as such, and it will go on to be as such unless something drastically changes in the next 6 days. We're looking again at the map, 51 Republicans and 49 Democrats. If you're looking at this, 2 Democrats means a solid blue state. So those are those solid blue states. 2 Republican senators are those solid red states. If we're looking at the states that currently have diagonal lines of blue and red, that means they have 1 Democrat and 1 Republican. Look at those areas for a second. These are Trump areas: Alabama, Florida, Missouri, Indiana, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, West Virginia, Montana, and North Dakota. Every single one of those states I named was won by Donald Trump in 2016. So if we look at the map now, we currently have 10 states that Democrats have incumbents in where Trump won in 2016. But they aren't necessarily making it too contested. If Hillary Clinton was president and Trump had still won those states disregarding the Rust Belt, they would definitely be GOP pickups, without a doubt. States like North Dakota, Montana, West Virginia would be out of the bag for the Democratic Party. But we're looking at the map now, and for some reason, the GOP is focused a lot more on states like Florida and holding on to states like Tennessee, Texas, and Arizona, which years ago would have never been contested. We're going to go ahead and start by listing all the safe Democratic states: Delaware, Maryland, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, Vermont, of course, New York, and Maine. That's pretty much the Northeast. We go over to states like Minnesota because of Amy Klobuchar's huge popularity. Definitely goes in favor of the Democratic Party by a considerable amount. That's not West Virginia, sorry. The state of Virginia itself, Tim Kaine, VP nominee for Hillary Clinton. They won the state in 2016. No reason as to why they should lose the state, especially with Corey Stewart, who isn't necessarily the most popular figure in the state of Virginia. I mean, having 2 contested GOP primaries, losing an election once before, this is definitely going to be a race to watch if Corey Stewart does make it close, but it's not likely. Keep in mind, Tim Kaine is already leading by double digits, so you can't really expect this race to be too in favor of the GOP, especially in already a Democratic state from 2016. Going over to the Western Coast, of course, California is a safe Democratic state, having 2 Democrats on the ballot. No chance for the GOP to win. No writing candidates, just strictly those 2 Democrats. Washington State, of course, and then Hawaii. And then those are all the safe, quote-unquote, safe Democratic states. Actually, we do have one more. I forgot about it. The state of New Mexico. So the state of New Mexico actually deserves a little bit more attention. Gary Johnson is running in the Senate race, if you didn't know. He's making this race a little bit more contested, considering that if you add the GOP and Libertarian numbers, the race becomes a dead even tie. But you can expect that Libertarians are probably gaining votes from the Democratic Party in a state that went to Hillary Clinton by 9% in 2016, and Martin Heinrich is already expected to win by a plurality. He's leading by 16% in the most recent poll, but still under that 50% mark. He's at 48%, but that doesn't mean he's going to lose this race. When we're looking at where the voting groups are actually going to matter, it's going to come down to whether or not the GOP can actually hold on to their candidate, whereas Gary Johnson is taking away a number of votes from the GOP. If the Libertarians do get, in fact, more votes than the GOP, that's going to say something. Not particularly to the state of New Mexico, but if there's another popular third-party candidate in another race, what are the chances that they take over that that minority party in that state itself? So if New Mexico goes more in favor of Gary Johnson than the GOP candidate, that will really say something. But again, this is a very particular race, very singular race. Not many independent or third-party candidates are too prominent. We do have one in my home state of Maryland, Neil Simon. In the most recent poll, he actually has 18%, but 538 puts him around 6 to 9% in terms of the election. I've seen a number of ads talking about retiring Ben Cardin because he has been in for 51 years. This is probably his last election, but he's just been skating by since 1966 when he first got elected. So I'm not really speaking as to who I support for that race itself. I'm just saying that he's been in for a very long time, but I don't expect him to lose. So which is why that state is rated already as a safe Democratic state, and it was the first one I turned to in terms of the map itself. But we do have safe GOP states like Wyoming, Utah, and Nebraska, and Mississippi, and the Mississippi special election. Now, the Mississippi special election could be a little bit more contested than the state election at large, or than in Nebraska, Wyoming, or Utah. But when we're looking at the numbers itself, Cindy Hyde-Smith is probably going to win this primary. The only way it would be contested is if that other GOP candidate had won or will win. If he does win on election day, then the race actually could get contested because the Democrat Mike Espy actually is leading against that other GOP candidate, but not against the incumbent Cindy Hyde-Smith. So if we're looking at where the election is probably going to go to on election day, probably 39% for Cindy Hyde-Smith, 39% for Mike Espy, and then the rest of the votes go how they go. Obviously with the majority in the GOP column, and then in the runoff, Cindy Hyde-Smith wins by double digits, which is why this race is now characterized as a safe state rather than just a lean or likely or even toss-up state itself. So that puts the Republicans at 47, the Democrats at 37, 16 contested races. Well, when we come down to the number of these 16 quote-unquote contested races, there are some safe states within them, just they were contested back in 2016. The first is the state of Pennsylvania. This is a Trump state from 2016. We're looking at a state that was Republican in 2016 that is now a safe Democratic state. And this is not the only race that is safe Democratic in. It is also safe Democrat in the governor's race itself. So something's definitely different about the state of Pennsylvania itself. It could be candidates, but it also could be the fact that President Trump is not approved of here. In fact, I haven't really covered the data from a number of these states in terms of where they do the Trump approval rating every quarter of the year, in terms of every single state itself. But right now he is underwater in Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, and of course the rest of those states. Surprisingly, he's disapproved more in Ohio and Iowa than he is in Florida, even though those states want less for him than those. But overall, right now, Pennsylvania is a safe Democratic state for the midterm elections. That covers every single safe Democratic state. That puts them at a total of 15 out of the 34 contested races, 35 contested races. But now we have 15 quote-unquote contested races that we can start narrowing down into true contested races. So likely states. Minnesota special election. Tina Smith is leading by around plus 10, plus 11. You can expect that one to just branch out of that 5%, leading up into the 15% mark, but not really reaching it yet, and still be a likely Democratic state. That adds to the Democratic Party's numbers. Go over to New Jersey. Right now, Bob Menendez is not... He's probably not going to lose, so if I'm being completely honest with you. We're looking at a state where this is a Democratic state. 538 did an article saying, is New Jersey really a toss-up? The answer was no. For the pure reasons that this is a Democratic state. Yes, they are not too fond of corrupt politicians, but we're looking at a state that is probably going to have a lot of turnout in those House elections, with Democrats possibly making gains in 3 districts from the state of New Jersey itself. Could be more, could be less, but around 3. And we're looking at where the Senate election is actually going to matter. That's going to be right at the top. So I understand the argument. Bob Menendez is quote-unquote corrupt, according to the people of New Jersey. They do not approve of him, but they do not like the president, even more than they dislike Bob Menendez. If we're looking at Bob Hugin, he doesn't seem like the safe alternative that you really could be putting up. We're looking at someone like Chris Christie. We're not seeing relatable things to someone like Bob Hugin. Chris Christie won because it was an off year. And this is not an off year. A lot of attention has come to a number of these races. Bob Menendez is probably going to secure this one and have it in the bag on election day. But Michigan is moving from safe Democratic to likely Democratic, along with the state of Wisconsin remaining in the likely Democratic column. Michigan has narrowed down to +9, +10, +11. Most recent poll shows +17, but the overall area is not reaching into that +23, +18. Now, one thing I want to point out, Michigan did not get worse for Debbie Stabenow. The GOP candidate just raised his poll numbers. We're looking at where Debbie Stabenow was before. She was at 52. 53, at the most, 54. Okay, now she's around 52, 53. But John James's numbers have gone up because the GOP coalition has backed its candidate fully. They've gone right back under him and said, we're supporting this candidate. So this has never been a safe Democratic state. There are not 60% Democrats and 40% Republicans every single time. This race probably is going to go in favor of Debbie Stabenow, but it doesn't mean that this is such a large margin. That was the last time I took a 2018 election prediction. That was October 27th, if I'm not mistaken. But we're looking at a state that was a safe Democratic state as of that day. Now it's a likely Democratic state. But again, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, all Trump states from 2016. So not a bad sign for the Democratic Party. Now, this video is going on pretty long, so I'm actually going to wrap it up pretty quickly. Ohio and West Virginia are two likely Democratic states, but I would call them in turn safe states. Sherrod Brown his margin has narrowed down. Jim Bernanke is probably not going to win. It's still going to be a likely margin in favor of Sherrod Brown. West Virginia, Joe Manchin hasn't really narrowed down the race, so it's been around the same in terms of where the data is landing. When we're looking at the likely GOP states, there actually is only one, and that's the state of North Dakota. That is a state that you should bring attention to because it's the first gain of the night, and it's in favor of the GOP. But again, that only adds to the numbers one Senate seat. We're going to look at the rest of the races. But right now, Kevin Cramer leads by +9 in the most recent two polls. Going over to the lean Democratic states, there are two, Montana and Florida. Those are two lean Democratic states. Florida definitely has rebounded in favor of Bill Nelson. We're looking at a state that Rick Scott led in for 3 months, and then all of a sudden, Bill Nelson has consistently led in every single poll. Even polls that showed him down by 4 to 5% are now showing him leading by 2% as of today with new data that came out. In fact, 3 polls came out today, which is a huge sigh of relief for me personally because I needed a lot of data from the state of Florida, and 3 polls all in one day definitely show a good trend as to what we're going to see in the next coming days. Montana, John Tester hasn't really lost a poll other than the generic poll taken all the way back in early 2018. He's been leading by +3 all the way up to +8, so you can expect around a lean margin nearing 5%. In terms of those lean GOP states, Tennessee and Texas. Those are two states where really have been a little bit more contested in favor of the Democratic Party, something they definitely are going to like. These races were contested. Keep in mind they have pretty good candidates. I mean, very good candidates in both of these races. A former popular governor who left office with a 74% approval rating, then Beto O'Rourke, an Obama-type candidate in the state of Texas. Definitely very contested races compared to where they were before. These would have been double-digit margins for the incumbents if it was held 6 years ago. But now they are not. It could be changing demographics in terms of the state of Texas, but Tennessee not so much. It just seems like they're clinging on to a former Democratic candidate, and it seems like it's actually going to work. With 46 Democrats and 50 Republicans, let's go into the tilt states because those are the remaining characterizations for the rest of these races. So, state of Nevada and Arizona and Indiana are tilt Democratic states. That goes into the Democratic Party column by less than 1%. The reason behind Nevada is the most recent poll was taken, and it shows Jackie Rosen leading by 3. That is not a large margin. The last poll taken before, taken around the 10th, October 10th, and this most recent poll was taken the 26th of October. So if we're looking at the data, a lot less data than what we should be expecting from these states, especially since these races are contested, which is exactly what I pointed out when I began this video. But we're looking at an area where we have lack of data. So right now I would characterize it as a lean Democratic state. A lot can change leading into the election. But for some reason, Nevada polls typically underestimate Democrats. So that actually could be a good sign for the Democratic Party on Election Day, but still less than 1% margin as of today. The state of Arizona itself, Kyrsten Sinema is barely leading by less than 1%, in fact, the polling data, but all consistent numbers that are recent are showing Kyrsten Sinema leading, whether it's +7 to +3. We're looking at data that is not too favorable for Martha McSally, but you pretty much can expect this race definitely to narrow down. No candidate here is winning by 7%. And then Indiana, Joe Donnelly, again, is narrowly leading. The most recent poll shows him winning. Most recent 2 polls, but polls before showed him losing. So definitely a lot of conflicting data as to where we're getting a number of our relevant numbers. But still, the GOP already retains the majority with that 50 seats. Because of Vice President Mike Pence. But the final state I have yet to characterize is the state of Missouri, and I will not characterize it as of today. This is the state that ultimately lacked the most data itself. The only polls are coming from the Missouri Scout and Fox News. For whatever reason, if anyone can give me a reason, please comment it down below if there's any particular reason as to why this race itself is getting lack of attention. But this is a very contested race. We have a senator who's gotten lucky very, very much in both of her elections, and now she may have actually gotten lucky with this GOP candidate again. This is a state that should be contested. It's a Trump state from 2016. A lot of the GOP funds are coming here. We're just not seeing a lot of data from the race itself enough to characterize it in full confidence. So we have 49 Democrats, 50 Republicans. The Democratic Party making 2 gains in the states of Nevada and Arizona. The GOP making 1 gain in the state of North Dakota. But then Missouri is left up for grabs, which means that there could be another gain for the Democrats. Another hold for the Democrats or another gain for the GOP. And right now, if we're comparing it to where Congress was before, 49 Democrats, 51 Republicans to 49 Democrats, 1 pure toss-up, and 50 Republicans. Just the red and blue may have shifted from place to place, but still the same numbers, just not too much in favor of the Republican Party, nor the Democratic Party, because they did not have any net gains as of today, Thursday, November 1st, 2018. So thank you guys for watching this video. Comment down suggestions below, and I'll see you all tomorrow.